Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Alistair. My name is Ben Paterson, a junior GIS consultant here at Esri UK, having just finished the graduate program. I'm joined on stage by Carmel Connolly, who, like me, started on the graduate program and has since worked her way up to the position of lead consultant in the professional services team. And today, we're going to be carrying out web editing with confidence. Well, what is web editing? So web editing is the process of creating, updating, and managing your spatial data from within a browser. This takes previous workflows that had to be undertaken on desktop devices to giving the power to your everyday user without the need for extensive training and heavy machinery. But if we go back to not too long ago, does this look familiar to anyone? Illegible squiggles on a page, precious time spent deciphering someone's poor attempt at handwriting. Not only that, but the paper it's written on is stained and destroyed with spilt coffee, spilt tears, and tough days out in the field. This problem is further condemned by the vast reams of paper required to hold all of the questions, and physical tools like protractors, rulers, and compasses were used to create those perfect polygons. Well, the web editing of today requires only a computer and access to the internet. Web editing means that there's a single source of truth as users create, update, and manage their spatial data. This improves data accuracy and ensures that everyone is working on the same set of data. By improving our data's integrity and trust, we can set ourselves up in the best possible way for future workflows, whether that's analysis, map production, or data management. Now, it wasn't an easy decision to decide on a topic to best showcase all these web editing capabilities to you today. However, once Carmel and I put our heads together, we quickly decided on the topic of farming. With Carmel having grown up on a farm, the opportunity to improve some outdated farming systems, and our love-hate relationship with Jeremy Clarkson, we decided to plow on with the concept. The opportunity to include some well-timed puns also helped. The Organic Entry-Level Stewardship is an agri-environmental scheme that gives payments to farmers with certified organic land in return for those farmers completing environmental objectives on that land. Now, the OELS currently has 2,400 agreements across England, but submissions can only be made by post. Now, as I've already covered, web editing has had a serious revamp over the last couple of years, so we set ourselves the goal of doing the same to the OELS process or showcasing as many of these web editing capabilities as possible. To do this, I'm going to take over the role of Farmer Ben, inspired by Carmel herself, stood next to Farmer John in the red jumper. This is an example of an instant app designed with web editing in mind. It uses the sidebar template to create a dedicated editing interface. We've used OS imagery, which provides a high-resolution picture of my hometown, Linton. Now, Linton resides just south of Cambridge and is where I grew up. Some notable features include the 3 pubs dotted along the high street, the new addition of a microbrewery in the industrial estate, and we even have a zoo nestled in the corner. However, the reason why Linton is important to Farmer Ben is the fact that it's surrounded by arable farmland. Now, I would like to submit one of my fields to the OELS process to make a little bit of extra money. To do this, I can easily go to the Edit tab and select the feature that I want to start creating. In my case, the organic farming submissions. I can start clicking on my field to submit my polygon. Now, once this is completed, you'll notice that a couple of the attributes are automatically filled in. This includes the agreement reference and the status. Other values, such as the submission date, area in hectares, and county, are all already automatically calculated, meaning that all I need to do as a farmer is name my farm and select the environmental objective I want to carry out. Now, in this example, I'd like to manage my land for farmland birds. And then you'll notice that once I've selected that environmental objective, 3 drop-downs appear below. Now, these values are only relevant to achieving that environmental objective, ensuring that I don't input any kind of incorrect results. Once I create that polygon, it's uploaded to my organic farming submissions layer, and I can go about submitting the second half of my field. Like before, the same attributes are filled in, meaning all I need to do is name my farm, and then select the environmental objective that I want to work with. In this case, I'm going to be managing my land for cleaner water and healthier soil. You'll notice that those 3 drop-downs don't appear automatically in this case, and it's only when I specify that I'm on lowland fields that these values appear. Now, this shows only values that are relevant to achieving the environmental objective of managing my land for cleaner water and healthier soils in a lowland environment. Again, streamlining the OELS process. Again, I can hit create, and this is uploaded that polygon to my organic farming submissions layer. Now, this instant app has been designed with farmers in mind, but the same data could be used and shared with the public so that anyone could edit it. Instant apps are exactly what they say on the tin, a quick-to-create application built on a web map of our choice. Through Instant App, we have settings that control edits on a per-user basis. We can control edits on a per-field basis. They allow our users to add, update, and delete attributes, as well as features. And they also implement the use of forms, which I'm going to cover in some more detail shortly. Now I'm going to pass over to Carmel for some web editing considerations.
Excellent, thank you, Ben. Now, some of what you have demonstrated has taken some thinking and planning ahead of time before you've even gotten to editing that spatial and geometry and attribute information. And it's the same for your organization. You want to have those strong roots in place before any web editing commences. I mean, you wouldn't let your cows loose in a field without checking the fences are secure. Am I right? But these strong roots, they're going to ensure that quality data is collected and you're keeping errors to a minimum. You want that editing experience to be as easy as possible for that user, considering their experience could range from 0 to expert. You want to promote efficiencies, making their users and their workflows as productive as possible. And think about what your data is going to be used for during and after editing. You want to make it easy to analyze, query, and maybe even integrate it into other systems outside GIS altogether. Now, I'm going to go through some web editing considerations, but your organization may have other things that you do need to consider, but these are certainly a good place to start to ensure confidence. Who are your editors? Do they have access to the right licenses, user types, and roles to do what they need to do? And have you locked them down enough so you're controlling what they can't do? What infrastructure are you working with? Are you using ArcGIS Online? Are you in ArcGIS Enterprise? Or maybe both? Your requirements are going to dictate which infrastructure is going to work best for you. Take a scenario where you need to have many people editing the same data at the same time. In that instance, you're probably going to be looking at using branch versioning in ArcGIS Enterprise. Today, we're focusing on web editing, but does your data need to be edited in any other platforms? Maybe offline in mobile. And consider security. Do you need to have an audit trail of who's editing what and when? Or maybe this breaks policies like GDPR. How do you need to control what kind of edits are allowed? Maybe it's just geometry or attribute updates only. And is your data going to be publicly editable? Have you safeguarded it and ensured you're not sharing information that you shouldn't be? A data schema is an incredibly part of your journey to starting web editing. This is where you can implement data quality right from the outset. Consider domains and lists, providing users with valid values and removing anything like spelling mistakes. Enforce mandatory fields using non-nullable and making sure that you're preventing incomplete records. And implement default values, auto-populating these fields and removing the need of total manual data entry. Enhance your data schema using forms. These are available to configure in the 4.x map viewer. You can incorporate your business workflows and dynamic behavior, and also do things like calculations, like we've seen in Ben's Instant Apps demo, where you can auto-calculate that county based on the intersection of the polygon and convert the area in meter to hectares, as an example. So Ben, tell us a little bit more how you set that up.
Yes, thank you. As the form streamlined my workflow so much later, I thought it was only fair that I went into them in a little bit more detail. Now, forms work to streamline data collection as they allow our users to edit non-spatial data efficiently. They're completely customizable, meaning you can set some values as required, read-only, or invisible to the end user. They greatly improve data accuracy, as I have already demonstrated, they only show the values that are relevant to the previous question that has been answered. For example, for Farmer Ben, he could only select the goals that would achieve the environmental objective that he selected. And finally, they also enhance the user experience. Now, this is through grouped elements and additional text. You'll notice in the example on my screen that text appears when Farmer Ben selects that environmental objective. Now, this is used to guide him in answering that question successfully. Does that all make sense, Carmel?
It does, thank you. So Ben has demonstrated one application so far where you can do web editing in Instant Apps. It's a fairly easy application to configure, and it's suitable for a range of users. But that's not the only application you have as an option. There are many web editing options for you. And bear in mind, we're not even including desktop and mobile editing options. And you might ask, why do we have so many? Well, with different users working on different types of data, we need different tools. And that's what ArcGIS is trying to provide for you. Some are for attribute editing only. Some are very solution-focused. Some suit public web editing and data collection, whereas others suit more internal, specific business workflows. You might spy that we have Web App Builder up on the screen as well. Please be aware that this is retiring in 2026 with ArcGIS Online and with the 12.0 release of ArcGIS Enterprise. For organizations who are doing web editing workflows in Web App Builder, they are looking at Instant Apps as an alternative to migrate to. Another option to consider is Experience Builder. So Experience Builder allows you to build and customize web apps with low to no code. It has a responsive design, so you can create and develop one application that can work across platforms. There's a bunch of different widgets for different workflows, including the Edit widget. And that Edit widget has equivalent capabilities to Web Map and Instant Apps editing. Experience Builder is featured in 3 other presentations today, so if you want to know a little bit more, check out the recordings when they become available. But out of all of these options, how can you start to understand which one that's going to meet your needs? To try and help with that, I've created a matrix and ranked these options based upon how configurable they are compared to how many web editing capabilities they have. And there you can see Instant Apps now sitting near bang in the middle. It has a really good level of configurable options as well as web editing capabilities. Now, the next item Ben is going to focus on is Web Editor. As you can see, it does rank a little lower in configurable options, but it does rank higher in the web editing capabilities that it has available. Tell us more, Ben.
Yes, so Web Editor offers a much more in-depth web editing experience with a number of more advanced web editing tools. Now, this comes in the form of a dedicated editing interface which doesn't look too dissimilar to that of Map Viewer. It has multiple drawing and selection tools, as well as supports the Map Viewer forms that I keep on going on about. It has editing constraints, so certain layers can be unselectable and therefore uneditable. Now we move on to the next stage of our OELS process, the review stage. Once polygons have been submitted by farmers like Farmer Ben, they need to go out to our decisions board for confirmation and confirmation. Web Editor can be used in exactly the same way our Instant App was. However, it requires no setup and the layer can be loaded straight in. So this is my web map within my ArcGIS Online account, and you'll notice this handy button on the right-hand side which says Open in Web Editor. Now, once this loads in, you'll recognize the familiar symbology and the data that Farmer Ben submitted. Just going to travel to my area of interest. Now, in Web Editor, it's really easy to select a polygon and review the attributes within inside. So in this example, we can see that the area in hectares is 28.65. Now, after closer inspection, we can see that this is lower than the suggested amount of area for this environmental objective. Now, as a reviewer, I might want to suggest that Farmer Ben uses both parts of his field for the same environmental objective. Why not take the one he put for his lower field, managing his land for cleaner water and healthier soil? Now, before I start making any edits, I'm going to set up a couple of the settings just to streamline my workflow. First of all, I'm going to ensure that it's only the organic farming submissions layers that are selectable. And I'm also going to turn on snapping to the OS master map, which I'm going to use in a later workflow. Right, now that's both set up, I'm going to select both my polygons and click on the merge button in the top right corner. We now need to select the attributes of the polygon that we want to preserve. In our case, this is the lower field, and click Merge. Now that you can see visually that the polygon has turned into one, but also these updates can be seen live by Farmer Ben so that he's up to date with any changes made to his data. If we inspect our polygon in some more detail, it appears Farmer Ben might have been a little bit hasty when it came to submitting this polygon. Now, in this web editor, we've also got our OS master map layer, giving us the boundaries of these perfect polygons. Now, as a reviewer, I might want to suggest that Farmer Ben tidies up his polygon a little bit to match that OS master map layer. What I can do is select this, and then select the reshape tool from the top. Once I click inside my polygon, I can then draw up to the OS master map layer. You'll notice this orange line appearing by my cursor. Now, this represents snapping to the OS master map layer, showing that I'm fulfilling out this polygon. Once I double-click into my field, you can see that the reshape has happened. Now, this is a great tool for small amends and touch-ups, but I think it might be not enough in this situation. So I'm going to show you an alternative workflow. As I've got the OS master map layer available, I'm going to make use of it. First, I'm going to make sure it's selectable in my layers. Then after selecting it, I'm going to click Copy in the top right corner, and then Paste Special. Now this gives me the option of pasting it into my organic farming submissions layer. I'm going to fill in the attributes like before. And create my layer. Now, once we use the selection tool, you'll see that I picked up 3 polygons. If we go into my selection tool on the left-hand side, we can see this is made up of the polygon I've just created, the polygon that Farmer Ben submitted, as well as we've also picked up our OS master map layer, which I'm going to remove from the selection. I'm now going to use our previous workflow and merge these 2 polygons together, again preserving the attributes of the polygon that I want to keep. Now that we've perfected our polygons and checked the attributes, it's time to move on to the next stage of our OELS journey. To do this, I'm going to use one of the newer features in Web Editor, the Bulk Attribute Editor, which can be used to change multiple attributes at the same time. First, I want to revert to my normal settings, and then use the selection tool to select all attributes around Linton. All polygons, sorry. You can see we picked up 15 here, and after we inspect the attributes, we can then change the status from submitted to reviewed. Once I click Save, it's going to update every single one of these polygons to have the status as reviewed. Now that we've got our OELS process moving again, I thought I would like to just touch on how we've automatically calculated the area in hectares. Now, some of you might know this is due to our lightweight scripting language, Arcade. It has the concept of profiles defining the environment and rules for where Arcade can be used. Now, Arcade can be used in web maps and dashboards, in labeling and pop-ups, but most importantly for this session, it can be used in web editing. Simple Arcade expressions control the dynamic nature of our forms, as well as work to automatically calculate values. Now, because Arcade is a lightweight scripting language, you don't have to be a developer to work with it. You can think of it like Excel's functions. You have a list of functions to choose from, so you're never starting from scratch. You'll probably be familiar with the rounding function in Excel, where you can round a value to a certain number of decimal places. Well, it's exactly the same in Arcade, and they even have the same layout of formula. The value we want to round goes first, in our example, area in hectares, and then this is followed by the number of decimal places we want to round by, in our example, 2. So Arcade can be used across the ArcGIS system and a number of different applications. Were there any in particular you wanted to mention?
Yes, there were. So the next application I want to talk about is Suite, which does make a lot of use out of Arcade. So as you can see, Suite ranks quite high in this matrix for web editing capabilities and configuration options. Suite provides advanced editing tools and rules-based editing. It allows you to incorporate your business logic and validate data at the point of capture, not after the fact. It has dynamic feedback options, the ability to guide users through edits and help them make informed decisions. It has options for no, low code, and advanced coding options using Arcade for you as an administrator to be able to set up the Suite application for your specific web editing workflows. It also has some unique web editing capabilities like custom keyboard shortcuts, triggers, and even the ability to georeference images. Additional licenses are required. You need a builder license to actually build the Suite application, and then data editor licenses to edit data. So Suite is an intuitive web editing tool that is applicable and can be used by a whole range of users. But today, I'm going to use Suite with my planner hat on. So I'm going to be looking at these organic farm submissions and doing some scenarios around funding boundaries. I want to be able to make some informed decisions and make my workflow as efficient as possible. And I also want to have some tools to support these editing workflows surrounding it. So let's check it out. This is Suite. As you can see, it is a map-focused-based user interface. It's surrounded by panels with different tools to support your workflow. The top and the bottom panel have out-of-the-box tools there. As you can see, I'm currently on the pan tool to pan the map. But as I move my mouse at the bottom, I can see the XY of that location of my mouse and the map scale. If I change the button option to select and choose a feature on the map, new tools are going to appear that dynamically switch up depending on my workflow. On the left-hand side is where I have access to other out-of-the-box tooling, like the ability to change the visibility of my layers, but also tooling that has been built using Arcade, specific to my workflows. I'll show you a little bit more about Filter later on. So like instant apps, Suite can be themed to meet your corporate branding. And like Web Editor, I've got access to these advanced web editing tools. So thank you very much, Reviewer Ben, for sorting out those funky edits that Farmer Ben did. Now I can get started on my scenario workflows. To begin, I'll use a keyboard shortcut to bring me to my specific area of interest and change the visibility of the layers that I am interested in. I'll begin with creating and choosing my orange funding polygon boundary. And simply, as Ben showed, start clicking it and adding it on the map with a double click to finish. But my polygon has disappeared. Well, don't worry, this is on purpose. This is demonstrating that rules-based editing, where you can control and validate data as it's entered. In this case, I can only add boundary polygons where existing organic farm submissions are. So I've learned my lesson, and let's try again. As I start to edit, this infographic has appeared to give me some more information about the edit that I'm performing. It's telling me about the number of organic farms I'm intersecting with, the total area in hectare, and the equivalent in the funding cost to that edit. So I'll finish that edit. And again, it looks like my polygon has disappeared. But actually, what has happened is that Suite has taken the shape that I've added, and it's understood what it's intersected with and immediately rounded it and matched the geometry. So this has saved me time. I've not needed to go and do each specific vertex to match that existing shape. The Properties panel reveals attributes related to this funding boundary polygon, including arcade-generated attributes like recording the agreement reference numbers that I edited over, the number of organic farms, and the funding amount. Now, these attributes that were created using Arcade, they will dynamically update when other edits are happening, like a geometry edit. So I'm going to continue and add another scenario. So I have some guidance that if a funding boundary funding exceeds a certain figure, we need to make a smart decision of whether to proceed or not. And we'll start to see that in that infographic as I continue editing. That information is turned orange, alerting me to the fact that a decision needs to be made. And in this case, I'm going to proceed and continue with that edit. At this point, I'm pretty happy with my scenarios, and I'm going to choose this one that I have actively selected as the one that's going to be approved and moved forward. So I'll update its status to approved. Now, what's actually happened in the background there is that change of status has gone and updated the status of those organic farming polygons. So let's check them out. Their status is now approved. So again, this has saved me time. I've not needed to go and select those 3 polygons, change their status individually, or even through the bulk editing tool. I'd be able to do it automatically. So it saved me time, and it's also accounted for workflows that I might easily miss in my day-to-day working. So let's have a little bit of a look at the back end to see how that was done. This is the Suite Builder. Now, this is a view that would be typically for your GIS manager, administrator, or developer. This is not a view that you would give access to your end user editors. For that capability to update those statuses, that was performed through triggers, which are found through Data Rules Editor, My Layer of Interest, and Triggers. So triggers essentially do something when something happens. So in this case, when my polygon was updated, I want to modify records, and I want to modify those organic farming submission polygons. And it's then through edit script that Arcade is used to actually define the specifics of what needs to happen when that action happens. Now, the script is a little bit longer than what Ben showed earlier. I'm just going to highlight some of the key elements of it that have helped make my trigger work. This trigger only runs when the status of my funding boundary is changed to approved. It goes and it finds what organic farm polygons are intersecting with it. And then it goes and changes their status to approved. So back in my data, I finished editing, and I'd like to get a little bit of better view about what's happening in general with all my data. And this is where these supporting tools can come into their own. So under Filter, I have the option to change the status. When I choose a status, this is going to update the map and change the features that are appearing. So if I choose Scenario, only those funding boundaries will be shown on the map, and same if I choose Approved. So Suite has provided me with some advanced web editing tools. It's given me information to help me make decisions along the way. And it's also provided me with tools to support my specific workflows. So back over to Ben to harvest what we've discovered today.
Yes, thank you, Carmel. So today we have discussed 3 of the main players when it comes to web editing within the ArcGIS system: Instant Apps, Web Editor, and Suite. Instant Apps' simple setup make it a great place to start for basic polygon and attribute editing. Web Editor's dedicated editing interface means it hosts an array of more advanced web editing tools for perhaps a more advanced GIS user. Now, both of these applications make the use of Arcade and Forms to streamline data accuracy, while Suite encompasses the highly customizable option, allowing our user to create an application to exactly how they see fit. It also includes the use of business logic and dynamic feedback, something that isn't included in our other offerings. Now, it's important not to put all your eggs in one basket, or perhaps the 3 that we've mentioned today. We have a number of web editing capabilities available across the ArcGIS system, so the best way to find one that suits your business needs is to give it a go for yourself. A great place to start would be the graph that Carmel highlighted at the beginning, which shows the number of capabilities in each of these applications versus how configurable you can make them. As I noted at the start of our presentation, web editing has evolved from a painstaking manual process to a much more streamlined web-based approach. Now, with constant evolution in the ArcGIS system, it's important to keep an eye out for what new features might be cropping up in the future, as well as those that have already been released. Since the start of 2025, Web Editor has seen the addition of the bulk attribute editor, making it easy for our users to update multiple features at one time. With the ArcGIS Online update later this year, I'm excited to see what new features it might bring. With ArcGIS Enterprise 11.5 just around the corner, the world of web editing is going to get some exciting changes. Since the release of 11.4, Web Editor has been included in the base install, making it a key application for our enterprise users. And finally, Suite 8.5 released in February, and with it came an updated scripting dialog for an improved scripting experience. It's also worth mentioning that the Esri User Conference is set for later this year, which might unearth even more changes in the editing world. Constant updates and improvements are important to keep tabs on. Farming has always been in Carmel's blood, much like that of Farmer Ben. So like her, keep tabs of these changes that might influence what new features are coming out in the future. Today, we have been web editing with confidence in a farming setting. If you'd like to find out more about web editing, you can visit the stand on the second floor. I hope that we've inspired some workflows and shown you the similarities between web editing with ArcGIS and scarecrows, as they're both outstanding in their field. Thank you very much.